LCR Radio are our sponsor.
Mike Ward. I'm a veterinarian in 19 years in Nacogdoches. My wife's a teacher for 22 years, and we've been covering the three counties, Panola County and Shelby County and Nacogdoches County, and getting a message across to small businesses and agriculture and education, public education and higher education. And the way we address issues that we'll see at the state legislature is our background, how we are, what we've lived, what we've thought, and these are the things that we're trying to bring out. Not being an incumbent, we're running, and this is our voting record, and this is the thing we've been talking about in the campaign. We had a family dairy of 18 years, and this gives me some insight about what a family business is on the dairy farm. It's a high investment, a lot of work, and these people work, and the children work, pitch in and help, and I understand some of the problems they have. I understand small businesses. I've been in a small business as a veterinarian for 19 years, and I know some of the problems there. I know that in the 60s and 70s, we had plenty of jobs in the state and made small businesses do very well. The 80s have been different. We've lost all business, and this has been harmful. So we need to create jobs, and we've been talking about that in the campaign. It's very important. People that have some money in their pocket, they'll be able to pay taxes. We'll be able to have the things that we want. But we've got the number one issue we've been saying is jobs. We've got to invite new industry here in this state. We've got to make this state where it's attractive to new industry. We've got to work on some things to make it attractive. We cannot stop with our youth. We've got to continue our progress that we've made with education and continue those things. So this is what we've been talking about in the campaign, and this is what I'm interested in.
Of course, you can relate to our prior administration with Bill Haley as being in education, with your wife being in education. She's been a teacher for how long?
22 years.
22 years. There in Nacogdoches.
Yes. She teaches at the high school there, and of course, the education reform has been good. Every time that we scrutinize and look at something, it's good. We need to do that in all aspects in this state. We need to also, at the same time, we need to work with the teachers and the administrators and maybe fine-tune that. There's some problems that I think going through the district with it, and I think that we can do it and make a little fine-tuning on some of the problems.
What about something that's a sore subject, at least especially this time of year, are taxes? And Mark Hanna, I think, spoke in Nacogdoches to the realtors last week, and he was talking about, hey, no way around it. We're going to have a state income tax in Texas in the next 5-10 years, and no way around it. He said the oil industry is just bailed out from under us, and Bill's been here talking to us about how far in debt we are. Now, I know that nobody wants to be the politician who gets on and say, I promise that we're going to raise taxes. I think, was it Mondale proved that wasn't smart a couple of times ago. But what about taxes? Where are they in your view of what's going to have to come to an income tax or taxes? People are concerned about that.
It's going to be something, the corporate tax, income tax is going to be laid out there and something discussed. Broaden the base of the sales taxes. It's going to be something else that is discussed. These things are going to be thrashed out, and the budget's going to be looked at. It's going to be a mean, hard session. I understand that. When I was seeking the support of the Texas State Teachers Association, we was talking about raises for teachers, and I got that support without promising any raises. We're going to have to look at things. We're going to have to scrutinize it. We're going to have to cut the fat out of the budget anywhere we can. We've got to hold the line on taxes. When people are out of work and businesses are hurting, it's hard. It's hard to increase their taxes. The income tax, I'm opposed to the income tax, but it's something that's going to be discussed. And you hesitate a little bit to say something. Our governor campaigned on the issue of no taxes, and he signed the greatest tax bill in state history. I admire him for having the nerve to do it. But I've tried not to promise things that we can't keep. And so we've been trying in this campaign is to discuss issues without promising. I'm not promising we're not going to raise taxes. I don't want to raise taxes. Nobody wants to raise taxes. But we've got to continue funding our programs. But I think that what we need to do rather than that, and this is not a state issue, but it's something that Lloyd Benson's been looking at, is a tariff on oil. I know we need to create new industry in this state, and that needs to be primary and utmost. But also, we don't need to forget the industry that's always been here with us, and that's the steel industry and the oil industry. And he's talking about a tariff on oil. Now, that's a form of a tax. It's going to cost us more at the pump. We're going to pay more gasoline. But it creates so many jobs where a tax increase does not create those jobs. So this is This is something to
that would increase the importing cost of oil and
Yes.
give an advantage to our domestic oil.
That's right. He's talking about 46% of our imports come from the Middle East. He's saying that it's against national security to be that dependent on an area that is so war-torn. And I think he's right. Nobody wants to be a protectionist nation. But it's also another tool to deal with the Japanese and their market, to open up their market to agriculture. Agriculture compete with anybody in the nation if we let our farmers plant and compete.
What can we do as far as a government that will help like poultry growers and other farmers here in our area, cattle people, etc.?
Well, we need to be supportive of the products, and we need to fight these tariffs and to keep them out of world competition. And those are federal issues. On the state level, we need to be a spokesman for agriculture, and we need to show what they do, what they can accomplish. Too many times we talk about them and we court them when we're campaigning, and then we forget them when we're in. They're people with small businesses. They're not that active. They're independent people. That's why they're farmers. And we need to be their spokesman. We need to be their representative for them and see if there's some areas that we can help them. And most of them on these imports and exports.
Will we have much on the state level that we can do according to that? Is it going to mostly come down into federal?
Most of it is a federal issue. But we can invite new industry and we can create new processing here. This state is the third leading nation in agriculture products, and it ranks way at the bottom of processing. So the Agriculture Commissioner is trying to get more processing. That was a program on television the other day. So we do fine in the poultry industry, and that's great, and the poultry industry would be great for us. But we need to broaden that area, broaden our agriculture base in this state.
What other sources of income do you see, versus taxes as far as, because that's our big problem, has been for years in Texas, nothing to do with anything that you or I guess, have done in the past, but just also when the petroleum industry bailed out, as we talked here on the program before, all of a sudden we're sitting here with a deficit, and Richard is going, hey, I've tried everything I can, we need more money, and taxes look like a thing. Are there alternate ways that you've looked at that can bring extra income in?
Well, I think that we've got to continue. University of Texas put a bond of $35 million to get Cematec Industries into Austin. And they did that. The Super Collider, we're making progress in this area. We're trying to win that. The Cematec agreement was part of that. So we look good in that area. And the state and the people there are doing a good job. They're trying to. We've got to diversify this economy. And that's the secret. I think jobs is the secret. I don't think that we can continue this just like in our own homes. In the 80s, I've had to cut back in my home. We just don't buy the things that we used to. And that's what we have to do on the state level, too. We cannot spend the money that we spent in the past until we get the income coming in. And that's why I think the number one issue is the jobs. And we're making progress in there. It's going to take a while. And I think the all-import tariff is important for these jobs. But I think at the same time, we don't need to be as dependent on the oil industry as we have. We didn't try to get new industry because we were riding fine, and it hit us, and it's a shock, and it takes a while to bounce back. But I think this economy's bottomed out. They're talking about that we got a little surplus here. Bob Bullock was talking about that. You don't know because the way we pay bills at the state, it shows some surpluses, and this can be misleading. But it surprised him. It looks favorable. I think this state's doing better. I think we've been on the right track for a couple of years. I think the people's done a good job in working together. And we got to work together in a nonpartisan manner. Democrats and Republicans work together with different communities in the state level, and all branches of government, state and federal and local, and to fight the industry. We've got the workforce here. We've got the weather. A nice place to come to, and we just need to be active and continue what we're doing. That's the answer. I don't think the answer is to raise taxes. Yeah. And I'm not promising that we're not going to raise taxes. I'm just saying we need to look at everything we can, cut everything we can, hold the line on spending, and see what happens. But at the same time, we've got to continue educating our children. And so this is when you get down there, and this is why it's the last thing in the session. Everybody, it's a rough, hard decision, and I know it will be again.
What are some things that you look at and say, hey, I don't like the way that's been done, not the individual person, just the way the state government has done some things that have affected us in these taxes here that you would think, hey, I'd like to see that change?
Well, campaigning, you always you hear from people, and this is a good part about it. This is what's great about a democracy in this country. But I've been talking to people in small businesses. Their feelings are hurt that there's a $25 fee for the privilege of collecting the state's money. That's unfair. It's something we had to raise money, and this is always a problem when you raise taxes. There's no taxes completely fair. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have voted for it, but I'm saying this is something that we've got to look at. Small businesses are hurting, and I hate to keep putting the same burden back on these people. You talk about education. My wife's a teacher. Of course, I hear the complaints. She's tired when she comes home. I get a one-sided view sometimes, but you visit with people in education, and they feel like they were left out of some of the decision-making. And that's going to always be the case. I'm not being critical of what's been done with the reform. I think it was good. 6 weeks on no pass, no play. No pass, no play is good. I think 6 weeks for someone who's 14, 15, 16 years old is a long, long time. It's kind of a death penalty. I think we can do the same thing with shortening that time. And most of the administrators and teachers say, we've got to worry about children dropout. And so these are some of the things we fine-tuning. I was talking about the education reform. There's nothing wrong with reforming education. We need it. We need to scrutinize it. But I think if we can sit down with administrators and teachers and come up with some fine-tuning on that, I think it'd be good.
Well, anything like that starts out, you've got to try and see what it does, sure. And then I think the main complaints we have are the things that didn't work, instead of hearing the things that did work.
That's right. You can always Monday morning quarterback, and that's what I'm doing, campaigning. I'm only hearing the complaints. And but I try to listen to those, and then you try to weigh those and see best answers.
Before we finish up with our time, Mike has some local relatives in this area, so let's touch on that just a minute before we go on to other things. Your wife is from Shelby County?
My wife's from Shelby County. Her grandfather was Albie Head. Shirley Brown is Mr. Head's daughter. So we have some close contacts. We feel good in Aiken, Texas, and this is part of our background. I want to tie these three counties together. I want to be a state representative for all three counties, and I think I have the background with the business I've been in. I've treated cattle and people in all the communities in those three counties, and it's given me a chance to talk with people. And I want to be a representative for all three counties. And my wife's family is part of that. It's made me feel at home in Shelby County. I grew up at Central Heights at a dairy that's outside of Nacogdoches. I know the people there. And so I think that if we can do that and work in the legislature, tie these counties together, then we can do a good job of fairly representing people. And we talk about we all the time. I don't think I can accomplish anything without a lot of people helping, advising me. Being a veterinarian doesn't give me the insight to every issue at the state level. But if we'll work and talk together and meet people and listen to them, get their opinions, then I think that we can do a good job for these three counties.
I think that's half of the problem if you'll listen. You've won half the battle already if you'll listen to the problems that people have. Of course, if you stick around Shelby County very long, you'll hear a lot of problems. I'm sure that's true with the other counties also.
That's right.
What about the way we've had a lot of the talk we've concentrated on the last year as far as when we talk about politics is, of course, around Wayne Justice and the wonderful state economy he's helped us with, and then the educated judge down in Houston or wherever that's trying to do the educational thing, Yeah. And just it seems like our court system is really coming in and helping us govern.
Sure.
What are your thoughts along that line?
Well, this court decision on our education finance is a problem, and when you go through the three counties, there's going to be people with different views in each area, but they're trying to get a more equitable financing with where a child, no matter what part of the state he grows up in, that he has a fair chance in an education. And so I think they tried to, in House Bill 72, they tried to address that, and they tried to do some equalization. I think that's good. And then the courts, when we don't move fast enough, they move us, and it's hard during hard times when we don't have the money. The prison systems, we're the state's out of work. We have more crime. That's a problem. We're taking in 150 prisoners a day, and we're letting out 150 prisoners a day. We can only be at 95% capacity. We can't build new prisons fast enough. So I think that we got to go back to education. I think that we got to give our kids something to do, and this is why I was talking about we got to look at children dropouts. What do you do when you dropped out of school? You get into trouble, and so I think this is part of that issue. The courts sometimes have forced us to make these decisions, and it's a shame that it comes up when we don't have any money, and it's a hardship, and it makes us a little aggravated, a little bitter.
No one ever wants to spend money on prisons, I don't think,
No.
especially in bad times like this. They don't want to.
But it's a problem, our district attorney race was very heated in Nacogdoches, and people want to arrest more people. We want to get crime off the streets. There's no place to put them. It's a problem. It's a problem for the people that are in office. I'm out, and I'm trying to get in. I can have a lot of good ideas, but when you get down there and you see the issues and face them, it can be different, and I know that.
And you're one person in a group. Maybe you got the best idea, but getting it across and getting them to go along with you.
Hey, listen, Mike, we appreciate you coming over to drive to Center Texas this
Well, I
morning.
enjoyed it. I appreciate
And sit with us.
Thank you for the chance.
The people of Shelby County appreciate that.
I appreciate you.
And we're going to take a break for just a minute here and then come back and visit with somebody else on this same information.